to be Megan Hiler. So Meg is a native Michigander from St. Joseph, Michigan. She graduated from Ferris State cum laude, where she was also a pitcher on the softball team and wrote for the school newspaper, the Ferris State Torch. While at Ferris State, Meg was a member of the academic All-Gliette Conference team. She was recognized as one of the best overall collegiate writers by the Michigan Press Association. Before landing at WILX, Megan served as the first ever on-field reporter for the Battle Creek Bombers baseball team. She began her career in broadcasting as a sports reporter for 9 and 10 News in Cadillac, Michigan. Although she loves sports, she loves to work in news and meets all sorts of different people to tell their stories in the news city in her home state. Megan started as a reporter in WILX News 10 in February 2018. She appears in the 5, 5:30, and 6 p.m. shows each day from Sunday through Thursday. She covers anything from fires and shootings to politics and features. Meg has covered stories where she's interviewed potential governors, NASA survivors, Mark D'Antonio, MSU trustees, and more. Her stories have been featured in People magazine, The Today Show, and on other NBC affiliate stations across the country. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Meg Hiler.
Okay, so I didn't really know how to do this, but I brought some pictures to kind of reference to. So I'll kind of just show you guys like basically how I got to where I am. So there's just a picture of me that was kind of near Christmas. That was me in the studio like 2 minutes before I was supposed to go on the air. So we're going to start with my experience here at Ferris State. So as he said, I was a pitcher on the softball team. I graduated in 2017. Here's a picture of me with the graduating class of sports commies up there. But yeah, while I was here, I worked for the Ferris State Torch. Obviously, you guys know the newspaper here. I also worked in the writing center, and I did WFSU, which was the campus news. I don't know if they have that anymore, but basically it was like an online. Michelle kind of does like what they had before, or it now, but that's kind of what I did. I like to make the most out of my time here. So that was me at Ferris. Then I actually took this my junior year because I wanted to, when I graduated, I wanted to basically enter the workforce right away. So I took my internship my junior year. I worked for the Battle Creek Bombers. They're a summer collegiate baseball team in Battle Creek, Michigan. Here's a picture of me interviewing somebody on the field. That's me on the radio. That's me with Mo Skeeter, the mascot. That guy always smelled really bad, so I didn't want to get too close to him. And that's me kind of helping out on the field. Basically, I was a communications intern there, but for the first month or so, I basically wasn't doing anything related to what I wanted to do for them. They had me scrubbing bleachers. They had me like cleaning up the stands. I was basically just doing like a lot of like work that it had nothing to do with communication. So about a month in, I sat down with my bosses and I just told them that I'm not getting anything out of this, and that I was thinking about leaving and trying to find something else that I would actually do well in and like use my skills. And I think they didn't have a lot of interns. I think they had 12. And I think they kind of got nervous when I said that to them, because then the next week I was on the field interviewing people, I was on the radio after that, and then I was also writing for the in-game program. So there's some advice, like if you're not getting what you want out of an internship, especially if you're not getting paid like me, I was not getting paid, just make your voice heard, and they obviously accommodated. So this was on the live stream for like players' parents like watch that at home. So that was on the live stream, and that was obviously broadcasted on radio stations in Battle Creek. So that was my junior year. This was after I graduated. I always tell people this, like we have kids come to the station all the time, and they just kind of ask like how I got to where I was and if I had a lot of job offers. I probably applied for, while I was in school, so my senior year when I was about to graduate, I probably applied for like 50 to 100 jobs at least in broadcasting all across the country, like literally everywhere. I think I heard back from 2. And one asked me, they were from Louisiana, and they asked me to send them my reel. And I didn't have a lot on my reel, I just basically sent them what I had at Ferris and my resume and stuff like that. Never heard back from them. So I came out of college with I had no offers, nothing. So a girl on the softball team knew a girl that worked in the sports department in Cadillac, and she kind of hooked me up with an internship. And so I worked in that internship for 8 or 9 weeks, and then afterwards they hired me on full time. So when I was at 9 and 10 News, I was an intern, and then I was a sports reporter / I kind of wrote for the website a little bit. But I did a lot of shooting highlights, basically going to games and just shooting highlights. I didn't get to do a lot of reports until later. And then even when I was doing reports there, I was on TV probably like once a week, which was not really what I wanted. So yeah, I mean, I was happy, and that's like kind of where I got my start, but it still like wasn't really exactly what I wanted. I wanted a little bit more. But yeah, this is just me like practice anchoring. There's me with one of our photographers, Greg, which I hardly ever had a photographer, so that was very rare. And then this is me shooting highlights at the Traverse City Beach Bums game. So then in February is when I got the job at News 10. Do you want me to just go through like a day in the life of like what I do? Okay. All right. So technically at small markets, they don't have news reporters anymore. You're multimedia journalist because you literally do it all. So basically a normal day, I'm in the 5:30 or the 6 o'clock shows. So a normal day starts at around 9:45, 10 o'clock is when I come in to work. And we have a meeting, like everybody in the newsroom has a meeting, and we basically just, like pitch story ideas. So we'll have like a whiteboard, and somebody will walk up here and they'll just like write down story ideas. And I'm in a lot of like weird community Facebook groups like around the area, like I'm in a Potterville one, Eaton Rapids, like I'm just in all these community groups just to kind of monitor it because people always have something to say on there. And that's where I get a lot of my stories. So I'll usually come in and I'll say like, oh, I saw in this group, this happened. And then they write it down. And then they, based on who we have, they say like, who wants to do this story? Or Megan, what do you like today? What do you want to do? And I'll usually pick, or or if like something else is happening, they're like, okay, Meg, you got to go cover this. So it kind of depends. But yeah, usually then I get my story off the board. And then the worst part of the day is just setting up interviews. People in sports love to talk on camera. So like everybody wants to talk about the 3-pointer they just made, or their team just won, they want to talk on camera. Nobody wants to talk on the news. Nobody trusts you. Nobody wants to talk on camera. So that's the hardest part, is just getting people to actually appear on camera and talk to you. So I'm usually trying to find interviews. Sometimes I just have to knock on people's doors. It can, like if somebody, like if I go to a shooting, I go to the neighborhood and I knock on people's doors asking if they heard anything. People will tell you to screw off and slam the door in your face. Like you gotta get used to it. But anyways, so yeah, I do this and I have my camera and everything. So I do all the camera work. I write out all the questions, things like that. So usually I like to be back. It depends on what show I'm in. But usually I like to be back by 3-ish because then I have to log out my sound, which means I listen to it and I write it all down. So everything that I'm getting out of my interviews, I have to write it all down or type it out. And then I take the quotes and then I put them together in a story, send it over to my editor, and he basically okays it or says, Megan, this sucks, rewrite it, which he's done multiple times to me. So then I go back and I rewrite it, and then I edit it all together. So it sounds like a lot because it is a lot. And then after I go on the air, I have like my scripts and stuff, and after I go on the air, I come back and I write my web article and I post it on social media. So basically everything you see, I do. So it took a lot of getting used to. If I have any advice for you guys, it's pay attention in your TVMP classes, because I didn't take them seriously because I didn't think I was going to need to do that. I thought I would get a camera person every time, and I don't. I think probably 95% of the time I'm by myself. I only get a camera person if I'm live. So yeah, so pay attention to those classes because I had to learn this all on the job. Now I have some examples. Do you want me to do some examples, like me? Okay, this one's kind of funny, but it actually like has a purpose. So remember when it was super cold, it was like -40 wind chills, it was super crazy. Well, you weren't supposed to go outside, but they're like, we're gonna throw Megan outside for a live shot anyway. So this is me outside for a live shot in Lansing, and they go, Meg, we want you to, you're gonna do a dangers of frostbite story. So I was like, great, like that's easy, I'll just find a doctor, no problem. And they're like, okay, yeah, you need to demonstrate frostbite. And I was like, okay, I'll freeze like a shirt, like get a shirt wet, freeze it, and like break it over my knee and just show people, dang, it's really cold out. They're like, no, our meteorologist is doing that. You have to demonstrate frostbite to skin. And I was like, how am I supposed to do that? Like literally, how am I supposed to do that? So I'm sitting here like freaking out, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. So I literally typed in on Google, I said materials close to human skin, enter. And something popped up. It was on, I think, of Mythbusters. They were demonstrating someone getting shot, and they used Jell-O. So I was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm using Jell-O. So I literally made Jell-O, and I put it in a latex glove to demonstrate frostbite. So this is my live shot. So.
And because it's going to be so cold out tonight and tomorrow, several communities have suspended their snow removal ordinances. That includes Lansing, East Lansing, and Meridian Township. You can check the WILX app to find out when they're back in effect. So, just how quickly can frostbite start damaging your skin? News 10's Megan Hiler is live in Lansing right now with a demonstration. Megan.
Yeah, guys, the wind chill right now is about -15, and it's only going to get colder. Now, earlier today, I made some Jell-O. This is going to represent your human skin. And just about 15 to 20 minutes ago, I brought it outside to kind of show you the effects that this weather has on it. And if you kind of see right here, you can see just the different colors. This was the Jell-O before, and right here on the fingertips, you can see it's already starting to freeze. And experts say that just like this Jell-O, this cold can have dangerous impacts on your skin.
I'm super nervous to come outside. Literally, the only reason I'll be coming outside if the fire alarm goes off in my building and they force us to.
And according to experts, that might be a good idea.
Yeah, we have a big issue of people just saying this is just Michigan weather, and it is Michigan, and we are tough, but it's been decades since we've had this. So a lot of people alive today simply weren't around the last time it's been this cold.
The last time temperatures didn't warm up above zero was January 1994. Doctors say that with the cold, you need to bundle up and make sure you don't have any skin exposed.
In that kind of extreme weather, you can go and start what's called frost nip within 5 to 10 minutes. And then frostbite, which is the second process after frost nip, can happen as early as 15 to 20 minutes after exposure.
Dr. Yu says symptoms of frostbite include numbness, a tingling sensation, pain, and skin discoloration. If this happens, he says, it's important to get somewhere warm.
The best, maybe safest way to re-warm yourself would be immerse the fingers or toes under warm water, not hot water, warm water.
Dr. Yu advised if you see your skin start to change color, go see a doctor right away. Both experts I spoke with say it's best to just stay inside because this weather isn't something to mess around with.
You may think, oh, it's just something I've dealt with before, it's not a big deal. And if you're outside for just a few minutes, it's not a big deal. But any longer than that, and it could be life-threatening.
And your body parts that are most prone to getting frostbites are your fingers, toes, cheeks, and your ears. And experts say that's because your body cuts off the blood to your extremities to protect your core. I'm about to go back inside and get warmer. Reporting live in Lansing,
No
I'm
doubt.
Megan Hiler, News 10.
All right, very good. Get back inside, Megan. Thank you.
So yeah, that was brutal. They actually, a lot of times during the day, if it's something that if it's something that the newsroom will think is interesting, they'll have me go live on Facebook. Have any of you guys ever gone live on Facebook? It's the worst thing ever. I actually hate it more than anything. Because I'm literally live on the WLX Facebook page, and it's like, I think we have like over 200,000 likes. So anybody can watch it, and they just rip you. Like the entire time while you're on there, you can see the comments. It's terrible. I hate it. But I had to do a Facebook, they were doing a Facebook Live with me reporting out in the cold. And people were commenting, they were so mad that they made me do the report outside. They were like, get Megan inside. They were like, literally the whole time, they were so mad at the news station for making me go outside. But yeah, that was really cold. That was just a few weeks ago. I don't know how much time I have, but I have more on here. Do you want me to do another one, or do you want me to take questions? I don't know, it's up to you guys. Oh, do another one. Okay. This one's actually really sad. I know. Sorry, I mean, it's news and stuff is really sad. I'll just let you. This guy, there was this tree in DeWitt, and people thought it was dangerous because it was kind of hanging over the road, and the road commission never did anything about it, and then one day it fell and it killed a guy on his way to work. So this is me doing a live shot out in DeWitt. Oh shoot, God bless me.
We learn how to call 911 at a
Oh wait, no,
very
this is
young
actually a
age,
good
but
one.
in today's age of technology.
Oh, you're right. This is it.
Good evening. A mid-Michigan man is dead after what authorities are calling a freak accident.
Police say a tree fell on his car in DeWitt Township just before 8 o'clock this morning.
News 10's Megan Hiler live there tonight with the latest on this investigation. Megan.
I'm here on Webb Road in DeWitt where the 32-year-old was killed when this tree right here behind me snapped and fell onto his car. Now authorities say this was just a wrong place, wrong time kind of situation, but neighbors tell me this could have been prevented.
Somebody died that didn't need to.
David Stewart drives on Webb Road frequently. He says that the Clinton County Road Commission cleaned up limbs from the tree when the wind knocked them down about a month ago. He told me he asked workers to remove the tree itself.
I said, the whole tree is rotted. The whole thing needs to come down. And they said, well, we'll get with whoever they would report to and get back with me or get back and take care of it. And it's quite obvious they never came back and took care of it.
Mike May lives just down the street from where the tree fell. He and his wife have been driving out of their way to avoid the tree.
And, you know, every time we go by it, it's like, is it going to come down or not? You know, you fear for your life.
May says that neighbors have called and written letters trying to get the road commission to remove the tree.
It could have been anybody on this road. You know, and like I say, the sad part is it probably could have been addressed, the issue taken care of, and a tragedy like this wouldn't happen.
Now, I did speak with the road commission about the matter. They said that they were looking into it to see if the tree was in fact their responsibility. For now, reporting live in DeWitt, I'm Megan Hiler, News 10.
Yeah, so also another note on live shots, that's pretty much all memorized, or it is all memorized. I'll cheat and I'll have my phone if I have like a lot to say, but all of that is just me basically just saying what I memorized like 2 minutes ago. So yeah, I have bloopers on here, but I want to get to questions. Does anybody have any questions? I know that's a lot of information.
Do you want to do questions jointly?
Oh, are we doing questions jointly? I'm sorry.
Sure, we could do that.
Yeah, that works.
I just
Okay.
thought that would work better.
Yeah, that works. Okay, so Alex, you can go. Okay, yeah. I'm done.
Up next tonight, we have Mr. Alex Freeman. He graduated from Greenville in 2011. He spent 6 years here at Ferris, studying psychology and sports communication. He spent 1 year a part of the Sports Careers RSO. After graduating, he spent 3 months in Indianapolis, hoping to find a job, before moving back home to Greenville and getting a job with the Daily News. He now covers 7 schools from Montgomery County and 2 schools from Alumni County. So, without further ado, Alex Freeman.
Yes, so I am Alex Freeman. I think Brendan covered most of my stuff here. I just want to address real quick the visual thing here. These are all pictures I've taken. I went to the Paul Zuby School of Presenting, and he always said that the less words, the better. So I decided to go with no words. So I'm just going to tell you guys about kind of my journey, how I got here, and then you can look at some photos that I've taken for the Daily News since then. But I'm super glad that Dr. A had Meg and I, because I think it's funny how much of a contrast we are. Megan's up here talking about how she was so determined and putting in all these applications and all this stuff before graduation, and I did not do that at all. I pretty much kind of slacked off. I did, a few applications before graduation, and I had no idea what I was going to do post-graduation. I moved down to Indianapolis, was down there for 3 or 4 months and hated it. I had one job interview and I thought I nailed it, and I didn't get the job. I got pretty discouraged, and I didn't know how long I was going to be stuck down there just living on my dad's couch. It was awful, I'm not going to lie. So how I got back to Greenville was actually pretty lucky. I had a family member reach out to me, say there was this job at the Daily News in town, and I was looking for any way to get back. I was missing my friends, my family, everything. And I just so badly wanted to get back to Michigan. And so I called in just about every favor I knew. And I actually tried to get a job. I sat down, I asked Paul for some help, and he was able to give me a letter of recommendation. And again, I just tried really hard to get this job. It worked out. The one thing I want to tell you guys is I actually found out later, I pretty much got the job via phone interview. My sports editor now told me, probably a year after I got hired, that I nailed the phone interview, and he pretty much knew that he wanted to hire me. So that's when this whole sports communication thing comes in. That's when the communication part really hits, is being able to talk and being able to communicate your skills and your personality and what you can bring to the table. Because for me, I was up against 2 other people for the Daily News job. And I'm a 23-year-old kid at this point with no formal journalism experience. I don't have much on my resume. I don't have much in my portfolio for writing. So how in the world am I going to get this job when I'm competing against 2 other people that obviously have more experience than me? And that was with my personality, my willingness to work, and just a determination to learn and become one with this job and learn everything I can to get where I wanted to be. Somehow it worked. So I'm pretty grateful for that. So I ended up at the Daily News in Greenville. It's a newspaper. I don't know how many of you have seen these days, but I actually brought an edition of the Daily News. If you want to get with me after and see it. But yeah, I work for a real local newspaper. A lot of people will tell you it's a dying art. Unfortunately, it is a little bit. Even we've had some budget cuts in the last year, and that's been kind of painful. But at the same time, I get a lot of value from my job and what I do. So to tell you a little bit about what I do, again, I cover 9 schools like Brendan was saying, and we cover all sports. You'll see in all these pictures here, you'll see just how many sports I cover. I cover everything under the sun in Montcalm County and a little bit of Ione County as well. And unlike me, where I was the lazy one who didn't do anything and all this stuff. That was kind of me throughout high school and college, and I'm here, the success story being like, even if you're lazy, even if you have like this much drive, you have to use this much drive to get to where you want. It doesn't matter how much you have, you just have to use it to 100%. But that being said, these kids here, these are the real, I won't say heroes, but these are the ones I write about, not those kids. I'll get to them. But I see these kids, and I wasn't a high school athlete. It's kind of ironic that I'm writing about high school athletes now, but I didn't play any sports. I tried out for my 7th grade basketball team. I didn't make it. I got discouraged. That's kind of what happens in life with me. But these kids put their heart and soul into these sports that they're passionate about, and that they're just playing for the love of the game. They're not getting paid. Sometimes they're obviously going for a college scholarship, and that's great, but these kids put hours and hours of work into their sports. And the only return they see is obviously on the court, on the field, on the playing surface that they have. And at the same time, they're distinguished human beings that are having actual adult conversations with me when I interview them. They're getting better grades than I did. So I mean, the amount of work these kids put in is phenomenal, and it wows me every day. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to tell their stories. That's what I do at the Daily News. I'm a storyteller. And how many of you, just by a show of hands, how many of you enjoy telling stories to your friends and family? Just for any sort of audience. Okay, decent amount, all right. Now, if I present to you the question, do you like writing? How many of you would actually say you like writing? Okay, a decent amount, but there's less. Again, I'm a storyteller, I'm not a writer. What I do is I get all this information from people, and it's like a scrapbook artist or something, I mean, you have all this stuff, you have these photos, you have these quotes, you have these words, and you need to put them together into a cohesive thing and make it sound good. In journalism, it's not a lot of me, it's all them. I ask the questions, I get the answers I want most of the time, but really, I'm just given a bunch of stuff that I just have to form it into a cohesive article that actually sounds good. And I think I do an okay job at that. But basically, journalism is I want to say it's a selfless job. I don't ever go into these things being like, oh, I can advance my career if I write this story, or this is going to win me awards or stuff like that. I don't ever think about that. I think about the kids, the hard work they put in, and telling their stories, because I think they deserve to be told, because these kids work way harder than I do. And I have to kind of appreciate that. So there's a few examples of these stories I have that I want to tell you about. Those 2 older men that you saw at the scores table there, if you haven't seen that picture, that actually was a story on a scorekeeper and a clock operator at Vestaburg High School for basketball. I was told by the boys basketball coach about this great duo who have been doing that job for over 50 years. They never missed a home game. And I'm like, this is great. But they're in the Basketball Coaches Association Hall of Fame, and as friends of basketball. And I'm like, this is a great story. I have to talk to these guys. So after a Vestaburg game, I go up to them, I introduce myself. I ask them, how they got here, why they keep doing it, what compels them to keep doing it and everything. And I got great information from them. I talked to the boys coach, I talked to the girls coach, and they tell me how easy those two make their job while coaching. And really, I turned that into a story, and I thought it was decent. And just a few weeks ago, I actually won Best Sports Feature from the Michigan Press Association, and I'm very proud of that. It's something that, you know, obviously I want to brag about. I'm here, so. No, but, so it's not my story, though. It's their story, and I'm just fortunate to be the one who told it. So I went to a Vesterberg basketball game here a few weeks ago, and I made sure to thank them and, you know, for their work and their service and everything, because again, it's their story. They're the ones who accomplished all this. I'm just the one who told their story, but that's the sort of thing that I'm able to bring to the entire county of Montcalm and part of Ionia, and I'm able to tell this story of these two old dudes from Vesterberg who help out the basketball program in a way that only the people of Vesterberg know. And Vesterberg's a really small town. Their enrollment in their high school is about 170 kids per year in the entire high school. But I was able to bring that story to thousands of people. And then the Michigan Press Association thought highly enough to give me an award for. So that's kind of cool that I'm able to tell those stories that otherwise wouldn't be told. There's another example I have of just, I guess, how far this outreach can be and how big of a deal it is to these kids. I was at a volleyball game in my first year, and I'm talking to a couple of the volleyball coaches, and they kind of, you know, talk for a while and whatnot. But by the time I'm done talking with them, I wanted to talk to a player. Well, pretty much all the players are gone, so I'm like, well, there goes that. But there's one player left. It's a girl named Kylie. And Kylie, I didn't know her. She's apparently like a backup on the team. She barely plays, but you know, she was nice enough to talk with me, give me some nice quotes and stuff like that. So I talked with her, and her parents are so flabbergasted that she's being talked to by a news person that her parents like back up and they start taking photos and they're gawking and they think it's the biggest deal in the world. And I'm doing all I can to just hold my composure and not laugh because I'm like, I'm just doing my job. But that made me realize really how big of a deal it is to these kids, and that's the kind of thing that keeps me going. You know, like Brendan was saying, I was a psychology major here for 3.5 years. And I decided to switch. I was this close to graduating. I was going to be here for 5 years anyway. I took the slow route. But I switched at like the last minute. And I decided to finish out my degree because I was this close. But initially, I spent most of my late teens and early 20s wanting to be a high school counselor, wanting to work with high school age kids, wanting to make an impact in high school kids' lives. And in a weird way, I'm kind of doing that. And that's really cool to me, to be able to work with these kids and to make an impact in their lives in just a little way, be able to tell their stories, and it's kind of cool. And yes, that wasn't a typo. I spent 6 years here. I know these chairs very well, so yeah. But it all paid off, obviously. And I could go on for days, and again, all these pictures have stories, but there's one thing I guess I want to leave you with, and that is that if you are at all interested in journalism, news media, in sports in general, we're all interested in sports or a sport career if you guys are sports comm majors. The one biggest thing that I can tell you is that rapport and relationships are so important in this business. It's really, really important. So I'll give you an example here just recently. This was on Friday. Friday at like 1:45, I get a text from my sports editor saying that a local coach who's had a lot of success at Belding High School, the football coach, he decided to leave suddenly, out of nowhere. He's moving closer to his home and his family at another school where he can do a varsity football coaching job. Caught us totally off guard. I kind of get my ducks in a row, do a little bit of research. I call him up at 2:30, right after school hours, because he teaches there too. And I leave him a voicemail, and I'm kind of like, all right, we'll just leave the rest up to whatever happens. Calls me back immediately. And that's the kind of thing that if I was from Wood TV8, if I was from the Ionia Sentinel, if I was from the Grand Rapids Press, Joe would not have returned my call. but I was from the Greenville Daily News. I've been to countless Belding games. I've talked to him countless times. I apparently made a good first impression on him, but he knows me. He knows I'm not gonna throw his name in the mud. He knows I'm not gonna drag him all over the place and make him look bad. But he knows after probably his worst day he's had in a very long time, telling people he's gonna leave, he called me back immediately and said, you know what, I'm gonna be honest with this guy, I'm gonna give him what he needs, I'm gonna have him tell my story because he's gonna tell it the right way. And that is so incredibly important in my job. And I don't think I would have got that from all these coaches if I didn't make a good first impression. So what I would challenge you guys to do, and you don't have to, it's out of your comfort zone, I get it, I'm kind of a socially awkward guy too, okay? But if you feel so inclined, and you want to come up to me afterwards, go ahead, do it. Give me a good handshake. Handshakes are important. You need to have a firm handshake. If half of these coaches, I cover 9 schools, all these sports, probably somewhere around 100 coaches. If I go up to these coaches and give them a limp fish handshake, they are not going to think any highly of me. Probably half of them would not respect me. So come up, give me a good handshake, tell me your name, make me remember your name, make me remember you. Do something that makes you memorable, because there is nothing I would hate more than to introduce myself 2 or 3 times to a coach or, you know, an athletic director. That's not what I'm in for. I'm in to make a good first impression, to build that rapport from day one, and to continue this relationship, and for them to know that I'm not gonna, you know, drag their name through the mud. So if you feel so inclined, feel free to do that. But that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
We are open for questions from the floor.
Yes, Paul.
All right, so both of you, as journalists, like, your primary skill set is probably like listening, kind of what you were talking about, like developing that rapport, but making sure you can accurately tell people's stories. How have you kind of developed those skills? When you were here, how did you develop those skills? How have you gotten better? Like, tell me about your listening practices.
Well, I mean, I have a number of comm classes that stress active listening. If there's something that someone's, you know, telling you and you want them to feel like they're being you know, listened to, you repeat it back to them and you make sure that you heard it right. It's that sort of thing. Just being, for me, it's attention to detail and you know, recognizing what they're saying and not having to ask them the same question twice. And because a lot of times I see a ton of reporters do that sort of thing. Like if I'm side by side with another guy and he's doing a, you know, he's got his phone out too, recording the guy. Like if a coach is talking to me and answering my question and this guy asks him a very similar question which he already answered, that coach is immediately pissed. He does not want to talk to that guy. He's going to be very short with that guy. So it's getting the information you need and getting out and not reiterating it, not asking them the same question twice, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. A lot of times, I mean, when I first started at News 10, I was always super nervous to go and interview people, so I would write out the questions that I had before, but I don't do that at all anymore. When I go out, I just basically, I kind of know what the story's about, and I just ask them questions based off of what they're telling me. So like you said, just you're listening, and if they say something, and I said, oh, you mentioned this, and then I would ask them a question kind of off of what they said. So it's a lot of listening and just making sure you're understanding what they're saying and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm still guilty of writing down questions at times, but you know, and I'm not the best interviewer. I think I'm okay, but there's sometimes I do jot down little questions and basically I try to memorize those before I talk to the coaches of the players, because I don't want to be one of those guys that's reading off a sheet and then asking them to give me a great response. Their response is going to be much worse if I don't look them in the eye and ask them as a person, not as a robot who's looking at a sheet of paper. And I think you could probably relate to that as well. So.
Yeah, well, obviously I have the camera rolling, so like I always have their sound, but if they say something that I really liked, I'll like we have time codes on the camera, so I'll write down the time code, or I'll jot down notes as I'm doing it because it makes it a lot easier, and that helps me a lot too. So, you guys with me?
So you guys are both obviously very passionate in your careers right now. Do you ever see yourself going somewhere else or trying to find different careers?
I'll let you take that one first.
I don't know, I go back and forth. I really like news because I feel like I can make a difference. I'm like exposing things that need to be exposed, or I'm getting the word out about this missing person, like this is what they look like and this is on the news and this is who they are and stuff like that. Here's like a stupid example. Like a few weeks ago, this woman, this old woman, she's living in like subsidized housing, like doesn't have a lot of money, and her landlord shut off her heat just basically because she doesn't have a lot of money. And she's like, I can't afford it, but I paid it last month, so I should still have it, blah, blah, blah. It was like this big thing. So I went out and I interviewed her literally before this, like just me calling them saying, I'm from News 10, why isn't this girl's heat on? Just me calling the apartment complex, the heat was on before it was even in the show. So it's just like, you have like kind of what he was saying, you have like a weird amount of like power and like you can really make a difference in news, and I feel like I've done a little bit of that. Like you get people to trust you, you get the word out about like just anything. But also news can be really depressing. Like I said, somebody gets shot and they say, this is their mom's address, go interview them. And you show up and you just feel like a terrible person sometimes. But like he said, those are stories that kind of need to be told, things along those lines. So I would like to get back into sports because it's happier. Everybody wants to talk to you. I love sports, but I don't know, I'm torn. I have a year left in my contract, so I'll kind of see where I go from there. But I like both.
Yeah, that's where Meg has it much harder than me. I could never see myself doing news. I really couldn't. Sports is my passion. It's what I've always wanted to do. And I'm fortunate enough to be at a news outlet that allows me to just do sports. Like, not a lot of places will do that. It'll be like, oh, you get to do 65% sports, 35% news. I have it really good at the Daily News. I can sit here, and there's bad days, of course, but when I was your age and I was in college, I had my friends and family say, oh, my son's going to be at ESPN someday and all this, and that's great. But being in high school sports, I think I really found my passion and what I want to do in life, and I love it. I, honest to God, love what I do. Right now, I don't see myself going anywhere else, and that's not to say that I won't, but I've always been a person that I don't ever envision myself leaving a job until I feel that I can't do anything further and that I'm just not happy in it anymore. But I don't ever look to leave a job unless one of those criteria is met. So right now, and I'm a very minute-to-minute person. Some people are day-to-day. I'm literally minute-to-minute. So I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I have a very loose schedule and all this, and the Daily News provides me a lot of freedom. So right now, no, I'm not looking to leave. I like what I'm doing, and I'm going to continue it. But thank you for the question. I appreciate that. So, yeah.
Going back to what you said, talking about the newspaper being a dying source of media, does it worry you at all?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I say it didn't. I kind of thought, well, and the biggest thing, I'll give you a little bit of insight, and it's not to get political by any means, but the Trump tariffs actually kind of hurt us because we actually import our newsprint paper from Canada. So that put a big financial dip on our company, and that's why we had a lot of financial cuts. So, I mean, while I felt really secure in my job as I've done everything I could, I realized that there's some stuff out of my power, and I also realized that nothing's guaranteed. But I think it's a great question because even when I worked over at the Holiday Inn here in town, I worked as a front desk supervisor for 4.5 years, and I trained people for that job. And I always told them, one of the things I always told all my trainees was don't ever get comfortable. The minute you get comfortable in your job, your work is going to slack, and you're not going to be as good. Your bosses are going to realize that. The guests are going to realize it. It's going to be noticeable. And I take that advice to heart, even working at the hotel. But in my career, I definitely take it to heart. It's something that I would encourage all of you. Don't ever get comfortable in life, in work, in anything. The minute you're comfortable, you're going to slack. You're not going to perform as well in anything. So I just kind of give it my all every day. I make sure that the Daily News doesn't regret hiring me, and they continue to appreciate my work, and that's as long as I do that, I feel pretty comfortable in my job. So no matter what happens, I know that I can go home at the end of the day and be like, yeah, I did everything I could. So. Oh, we gotta have some. Don't be shy.
Go for it.
How has Ferris and required classes that you had to take prepare you for where you are right now?
Do you want me to go?
I'm trying to think.
I would say what helped me the most was honestly, it was working for the newspaper helped me a lot. Because that kind of the basics of writing a story. What else? I took a broadcasting class. The TDMP classes, I think you should really, if you want to go into TV, you really have to pay attention to those because I had no idea what the heck I was doing. And obviously, Dr. A pushed me every day. Dr. A.
Guys, you
Work for Dr. A.
You will grow to appreciate Dr.
Seriously,
A
she's
once
the
you
best,
don't
yeah.
have her anymore. I mean, for real, it's she's a great woman. She's the reason we're both back here.
She'd do anything for you too. So.
Yeah, you know,
Seriously.
she's hard on you because she cares about you guys. She wants you to succeed. You know, she's a great woman, and you know, always working for those brownie points.
Echo.
But you know, for me, it was probably my journalism classes, and honestly, I only took 2 journalism classes. So again, I don't know how I got so lucky. I really don't. There's a lot of luck that went into me getting this job and not having the experience, and it worked out. But again, I worked hard for it. I really think that you can succeed in just about anything you want as long as you have the passion and the hard work to get there and just a little bit longer. But for me, it was the journalism classes and a lot of Dr. A and her motivating me and her thinking highly enough of me, which is great. If she assigns you to these projects and to do all this stuff, it's not a detriment on you. She's not trying to make your life hard. What she's doing is she sees potential in you. She wants to push you because that's what you need to do. You need to be pushed. I needed to be pushed. You know, I was assigned as her office assistant. She wasn't going to take no for an answer. I tried to tell her no, but instead I ended up at her office once a week helping her out, doing stuff behind the scenes in sports communication. And, you know, I don't know. Just listen to Dr. A, okay?
I have bloopers if you guys want to see them.
Yeah. Let's see.
Wants to work.
Okay, so most of these are all pre-recorded, except one of them's like a thing from my Halloween report.
A spokeswoman.
Oh my. I was trying not to like, I knew it was there, but I didn't want you to know.
Oh man. Okay.
I'm gonna stop this.
Okay, no, I'm sure that was fine. As you can see, there's a cold front coming through. Do you think I could... There's a hurricane coming to Michigan. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, all right, thank you. Thanks. Today's attendance helps determine how much state funding schools get. I'll tell you what happens with the schools that were closed today. God bless America. God bless. There's two! Oh, my ears.
I'm not going there.
I'm not going there. Thanks for doing that, Megan. Yeah. Taking that bullet for us.
The cat, now called Chevy after her ordeal.
Any more questions? Come on, guys. Okay.
What do you find the most part to do about
One of the things I had the most trouble with for the first part was the viewers. They can be really mean. When I first started, like when I first was reading off the teleprompter, sometimes I would like stumble over my words just because A, I was nervous, and B, I wasn't used to moving words. And I would get emails from people. People will literally take the time, they will look you up on the website, find your email, and they will send you the nastiest emails ever. People have cussed me out, they've told me I'm ugly, they told me to quit my job. Like, people are ruthless. So it took a lot of getting used to. Like, even when you post your story, like I have a WILX Facebook page, people will comment on it and just like yell at me on it. So that was the hardest part, was just getting used to, like, not everybody's gonna like you, and you kind of feel like a jerk when you're covering terrible things all the time. And then getting people to talk to you is kind of hard too. get used to it.
Have you ever had like a story that was just like so depressing? You didn't want to really report it, and then if you did, it kind of like ruins your entire day, like afterwards.
I had one, it was last summer, and this family was driving. They were in a different state. This whole family was driving, and they got in a car accident on the highway, and all 4 of them in the car instantly died. And this was on a weekend. It was on a Sunday. I still work Sundays because I'm new. And Clayton, our anchor at the time, he says, Megan, this just happened. I was already doing my story for the day, and it just happened. He goes, Megan, this story just happened. We want you to go interview their friends and their neighbors. And I immediately was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I was still kind of new, and I was like, I just don't want to do that. He goes, Megan, I need you to go do this. So I went out there, I knocked on this lady's door, and I just basically approached it as like, I know this is really hard, but like, just tell me about who they were as a person, not how they died. Just, how do you want people to remember them? And that's kind of how I worded it. And I talked to this woman, and they were like friends for like 15 years, and she was just sitting there sobbing. And I got the interview, and she did really well, and she was very nice about it. But so that like aired, and then I just remember I was driving home. I called my mom, and I just sobbed. I was like, I feel like I'm the worst person ever. I said, this girl just lost her best friend, and I stuck a camera in her face, and I felt like the worst person ever. But like I said, you wouldn't have known the type of person she was if I didn't do that interview. And afterwards, everybody was sharing it. They were like, oh, so-and-so is such a good person, like, we'll miss her, and stuff like that. So I felt terrible, but I guess you kind of got to get used to it, but that was one of the worst ones. I just felt really bad about that. That was terrible. But sometimes, yeah.
All right, I got one for Alex. Sure. Do you find it more difficult to cover maybe, I don't know if less popular sports is the word, but like everybody likes to cover like football moves, stuff like that. Sure. Do you find it more difficult to cover? Like you have like ski shooting up there. Yeah. Do you find that more difficult, or do you find that a little bit more fun to do?
It really depends on what it is. The ski shooting was actually super fun because I actually hung out with a local team at their entire day. I hung out with them. I got to know the coaches. I got to know the parents. And I actually wrote a column on it. I decided to turn it into a kind of first-person story because I felt I could do much more impact with a sport like that from a first-person perspective rather than getting a bunch of interviews. That article was really about my day with the Carson City Crystal target shooting team. And that was awesome because I was able to put my personality in it. I was able to tell people, how great this sport is, how it should be in more schools, that sort of thing. So that was really fun. Stuff like the less common sports, like competitive cheer. I've covered one competitive cheer event. I don't know the first thing about cheerleading. So that is kind of difficult. And what you really have to do is you have to mostly let the coaches and the players talk. That's one of those things where you can't provide a lot of personal context because I'm sure you and I have never cheerleaded before. So exactly, yeah. So that's one where you have to ask really general questions. You have to kind of adapt really quickly, and you have to realize that they know way more about this than you do. So in that sense, you just have to let them talk, and you have to organize their quotes in a good enough fashion to where it makes sense and it sounds like a good story. But that's really it. So a lot of that, I think, I'm thinking back to that article, that was probably over a year ago, but a lot of it was, how do you think the team did today? Where would you say your progress has been from the beginning of the season? Who do you see stepping up? Sort of like that. And those are questions you can ask anytime, anywhere, about anything, and it'll work. So ideally, you don't want to go to those things. You want to, talk about number 30 who scored 28 points tonight, had a fantastic game, and it's their career high because you've seen them play 5 times. But you can't do that with everything. So it can be a little more difficult, but you just kind of adapt as you go. So.
How do you guys do story generation? I know Mike said that they do meetings and shows on Facebook, but other than that, like where do you look for stories?
For me, it's a lot of, I cover a lot of games generally, so, we'll have schedules given to us by the schools, and we just kind of map out, which schools haven't we covered for a while, which sports haven't we covered for a while. We try to hit every team and every sport and every season, which is kind of difficult at times. But other stories we just kind of hear about. Athletic directors let us know when kids are signing letters of intent. You probably saw a few of those in there. just new coach stories. Yeah, we hear from parents, we hear from coaches, we hear from athletic directors about certain things. People email us story ideas sometimes, and we get on those. So it's kind of just a mishmash of everything. I don't have a normal schedule. Mike was asking me, what time do you go in? I'm like, I don't go in at a certain time. I keep my own hours. I work weird hours, and I just email those to my HR director at the end of the week. And honestly, when I was telling, Jared? When I was telling Jared here about my minute-to-minute lifestyle, that actually works really well for me because I literally don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. But I'm going to probably text my boss in the morning and be like, hey, what do you have for tonight? If he has a story, cool, he'll go with that. If I have a story, cool, I'll go with that. But we just kind of fly by the seat of our pants. And it's hectic, it's crazy, and there's times where it gets to 7 o'clock and I don't have a story. And my deadline's at 10:30, and I need to frantically call people and get like a team preview or a team recap or a mid-season report on a team or something. And that's kind of hectic, but it is what it is. Most of the time we have a plan, but sometimes we don't. So.
For both of you, what's like the most memorable story or funnest? I think your most memorable is probably the two people at the story.
Yeah, I mean, I've it's memorable for the award I got, and that's great. But there's a lot. Like I said, all 70 of those pictures or so, they all have stories behind them. It's really hard to narrow down. There's a couple, okay? So I covered a regional championship that I was not expecting a regional championship. I went to a softball regional tournament, and our team was in the regional semifinals, and they played the regional finals. I was expecting a kind of one-and-done thing, and then they win the regional semifinal game, and the team freaks out. I had a celebration picture in there from that, and then they end up winning, and it was crazy because I don't think they were expecting to win. And that doesn't happen a lot in high school sports. Normally it's the favorites that win and all that, but when you have an underdog win a big thing like that and go farther than they have in school history, that's awesome. And then I had a Central Montcalm girls basketball team. They went 20-0 in the regular season, and I kind of thought they were going to be 20-0. And when you go into a 19-0 game and it's at home and it's against a team they should be, you figure you're going to get a win. But it's still really cool to see this group of girls who worked so hard and they wanted this so bad, and they do it, and then you just see tears running down their face, and you kind of build these miniature relationships with these girls just by talking to them and getting to know their story and their personalities and stuff like that. So that's really cool. So
I have a favorite, and then I have some that have stuck with me. The ones that stick with me is I've interviewed a lot of Nassar victims because we're like right where it's like all been happening, and those girls really stick with you. The survivors, it's just crazy the stories that they have, and that always really sticks with me. And I did one, which was a really nice story. I live in DeWitt, so I'm also on the DeWitt community page on Facebook. And there was a Girl Scout in DeWitt, and she is deaf. And so she would come to all the Girl Scout meetings with a translator that would like sign her what was going on. And they decided that they were going to raise money to go to sign language classes so they could all learn and talk to her, which I thought was just the cutest thing ever because they're all like 6-year-olds and they're all like learning sign language, and I just thought it was the cutest thing ever, and that was really well received. They because we're NBC affiliates, so like any NBC channel can use our stuff. So like they were like showing that in LA, like people loved it. It was that was one of my favorites. I thought that was nice.
Last question? Got one?
does Dr. A have one?
Well, yeah, I do. Alex, have you got an online presence as well as a print presence?
I'm on Twitter. I can write my Twitter handle up there. I post all my stories. I actually have a ton of business cards. Got my Twitter handle on there, so if anyone's interested, come up get a business card. I've got plenty. So that's really as far as my online presence go. You can read most of my stories online. So yeah.
Oh, I've got all that stuff. Yeah.